Welcome readers to Reading Workshop. We are continuing with our historical fiction unit and I am excited to be in band 3 of the unit. So we're almost there, but we still have a little bit of work to do. So as always, I want to start the workshop by reminding you of our Readers of Historical Fiction chart, and here is the chart that we have been growing together. So far, we've been doing a lot of work around our characters and supporting a theme. And lastly, we were able to work more with minor characters and we were taking into account their perspective. So what are they going through? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? Today we're going to move on to something different. We are going to turn to nonfiction to deepen our understanding. So to make our understanding of the books we're reading stronger. So let's try that work today. Our teaching point is that readers turn to nonfiction to deepen understanding by synthesizing information from a nonfiction text and the fiction text. So what does that mean? That means that first we're going to find a nonfiction text about the time period. Secondly, we're going to think, how did the nonfiction text help me to understand the plot better? And third, we're going to ask who makes the rule and who is in charge during this time period. Our academic vocabulary are synthesized, which we know means to put together. We did a lot of great synthesis work when we were reading nonfiction. We were studying weather. And we also have the word plot, which means the main events of the story. So what we are trying to achieve today is we're going to read a nonfiction text about a very specific time period. And this is going to help us understand what is happening in our historical fiction book. Let's try it. Readers, I went into Epic and I wanted to find a nonfiction book about the Great Depression because this is a time period where Bud Not Buddy is taking place and that's the setting that we're dealing with. So I found Life During the Great Depression. This was right on my level. It was a level R, it wasn't too high and it wasn't too easy, so it offered me just enough of a challenge. So I decided this would be a great book to read. So I went and I found Growing Hungry. I want to read that excerpt to you. And then I'm going to think, well, after reading this nonfiction text, how did that help me to understand the plot of Bud Not Buddy better? And then I'm going to ask myself, based on this, who's making the rules and who's in charge during this time period? Okay, let's try it. The number of people across the country without jobs and food grew. Many Americans did what they could to survive. Sometimes families were forced to take donations. Soup kitchens sprang up all over the country. One soup kitchen in Detroit, Michigan served between 1,500 and 3,000 people each day. That's a really large number of people that were lining up to get food each day, which leads me to think that during this time period, it wasn't just a few people who didn't have any food to eat, it was a large number of people. So it was a pretty terrible time period. Let's read over here. President Hoover. Herbert Hoover was president from 1929 to 1933. He did not believe the Depression could be fixed solely by government action. He worried government help would destroy the United States' strong spirit. He believed the economic depression would eventually fix itself. President Hoover's refusal to do more angered many Americans. In 1928, voters had great faith in Hoover's ability to fix the economy. They gave him credit for the success of the 1920s. But when the Depression began, Americans blamed Hoover. With nowhere else to go, homeless people began building shacks in empty lots across the country. People call the little shack towns Hooversvilles after the president. And here they offer us an image, and I'm noticing, let's read the caption. Hooverville shacks were made of cardboard, tar paper, glass, tin, and anything else people could find. So people didn't even have anything to build these with. It was with whatever scraps they had. And after analyzing this, I'm noticing that there's a lot of these shacks all over this huge lot here. So again, it wasn't just a few people who were not able to afford a home or not able to afford food. It was a lot of homelessness. And look over here, I'm noticing like laundry, so this must be like a family living there. So I'm learning a lot from this time period by studying this nonfiction text. Readers, now I'm going to ask myself, how did the nonfiction text help me to understand the plot better? So I'm going to use these sentence starters here. The nonfiction text taught me that people did not have any food to eat. A lot of them had to rely on soup kitchens. And it also taught me that people were homeless during this time period, and a lot of people struggled to get jobs, and the government was doing very little to help them. So this connects to the part when, this is making me think that there's a lot of different parts that connect back to what we're reading, but I want to make this relevant to you. And I know that you just finished reading chapter 13, and there was a scene in chapter 13. That scene in chapter 13, Bud finally gets to meet Hermione Callaway, and when he gets there, he's saying, wait a second, I can't take you in. I am not your father. So let's read that scene so that we can find specific text evidence that we can add to our thinking. Hermione Callaway said, I am truly sorry to hear, but it's obvious that you are a disturbed young man. And you don't have a clue who your father is. You just tell us who's looking after you now, and we'll get you sent back to wherever it is that you belong. I belong with you now, sir, Hermione Callaway said. Now you look here, Jimmy said. Hold on, Herman. He seemed a lot nicer than this Callaway guy. But you gotta understand, Mr. Callaway here can't be your daddy. No how, no way, nuh-uh. I don't know what gave you that idea, but whatever we've got to get you back home. Someone in Flint's got to be very sick about you. I said, no, sir, I don't have nobody left in Flint. That's why I came all the way here. He said, no one? No one at all? I said, no, sir. He said, no brothers? No, sir. No sisters? No, sir. What about an auntie? No, sir. No grandma? No, sir. Shucks, it looked like this guy was gonna go over my whole family tree. But he whistled and said, so you were living in an orphanage? Uh-oh. Okay, readers, so I just read the part that connects back to the nonfiction text that I was reading. And I can say, for example, Hermione Callaway did not want to take Bud in because he did not want to have somebody else to feed beside himself. This is a terrible time period. No one can afford anything. And he's not about to take a kid that's just coming around and saying, hey, you're my father. So now, readers, I want to ask myself the third thing. Who makes the rules and who's in charge? Well, it seems like it's the adults in charge, definitely not the kid in charge here. And based on this text that we were reading earlier, it's also the government who's in charge and who has been asked to help the people, but of course, there's little being done. Readers, I want you to try this work now. Go ahead and pause the video and find a part from Bud Not Buddy that's connecting back to the nonfiction text that we were reading. Good luck. Readers, today we turn to nonfiction to deepen our understanding by synthesizing information from a nonfiction text and the fiction text that we're reading. First, I found a nonfiction text about the time period. Then I thought, how did that nonfiction text help me to understand the plot better? And finally, I asked, who makes the rules and who's in charge? What you are going to be doing now is you're going to find a nonfiction text about the Great Depression. You're going to think, how did the nonfiction text help me to understand the plot better? You're going to ask, who makes the rules? Who's in charge? Go back to Bud Not Buddy and add specific text evidence. Stop and jot on the Google Doc. And again, make sure that you're citing specific text evidence that relates back to the claim that you are making. Before you get back to this work, I just want to show you how easy it was for me to find a book on the Great Depression. I just went into Epic and I'm going to type in the Great Depression. And now here you can click where it says nonfiction. It'll either say fiction or nonfiction. I just added the filter of nonfiction, which means I wanted to find nonfiction books on this topic. And then it gave me a bunch of choices. So good luck, everybody.